Ladies and gentlemen, guys and girls, my name is Raven and welcome back to my channel. And in today's episode of Raven's Ramble, we're going to be talking about realism in For Honor and whether it is still a thing, whether it's still needed, and whether they're still even like thinking about realism anymore. Because I still see a lot of people having the same old arguments on like, you know, how realistic should the game be, whether it be characters, you know, what moves the characters have, what characters get introduced, when it comes to the whole genders of characters, armor, weapons, all of that, okay? People still talk about realism. So we're going to discuss some things today about that, and I'm going to go over some of the things I've noticed and give you my opinion. So for the most part, For Honor has always tried to be a realistic game, okay? They've tried to stay as close as they can to not going full fucking fantasy with massive armor, massive weapons, so on and so forth. They've tried to keep it pretty realistic for the most part. Now, of course, in the original game, there were some certain things that weren't realistic, i.e. just calling a catapult out of nowhere, a whole rain of arrows, but there's no archers or catapults anywhere. That's not realistic. Once again, Peacekeeper just like from a standing position doing this massive fucking lunge and diving across the place and stabbing someone. Once again, not realistic, and we'll get into more of that later on. But they have tried armor wise, weapon wise, you know, gender locked wise. They've tried to keep it sort of realistic, but that was at the start of the game. Now they've sort of thrown all of that out the window, at least in my opinion. And this sort of really only happened when they first introduced Centurion and Shinobi. Now, first of all, let's take a look at the Centurion. Centurion was a thing, it's rooted in history. There is a historical thing there and a realistic thing there when it comes to the Centurion. But what isn't realistic is, once again, the Centurion just going, you know what, I'm just gonna jump from a standing position like halfway through the air like fucking Superman and stab a guy right in the fucking gut as hard as I can from a jumping position, and then he's just gonna get up and be completely fine apart from missing some health. Just the fact that he's jumping so far doesn't make any sense. The fact that he can turn around, Centurion can turn around to a guy like Lawbringer who is fucking like 7 foot tall in full 16th century plate armor and just uppercut him in the face and he's gonna go flying. It doesn't make any sense, okay? Little things like that start to not make any sense whatsoever. And then you take Shinobi. Once again, the guy is he's just teleporting around the place. He like does a double dodge where he just slides across the ground like he's fucking got grease on his feet. The smoke popping up everywhere, he's disappearing, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, the guy can be nimble. Yeah, ninjas once again were a realistic thing and all that was there, but they sort of, the way they made him wasn't realistic. Now, is that a problem? Now, some people will say yes and other people will say no. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through it and I'm going to explain my thoughts on it, and then hopefully, you know, I can get all your opinions on everything in the comment section down below on what you think and whether you think I'm right or wrong. Now, when the game very first came out, I was on the realism train, okay? When people used to talk about, oh, why is the Lawbringer only a male and why aren't there female options and stuff like that. Same with the Warlord. I used to turn around and give the realistic version of it, of what they're trying to go for. Of course, there were, you know, Lawbringer is a 7 foot tall guy. He was always built to be a dude, and back then there weren't really female knights in what he's based off. There weren't really that thing going on, so they sort of gender locked in for a reason. Same with Shigoki. As far as I know, there weren't really any massive fucking huge sumo wrestler women type thing in Japan back then. That's why, you know, Shigoki is locked to a male. I can see why they were gender locking stuff in terms of what they were trying to go for when it comes to the realism of it. So I used to defend that back in the day, because apart from a few little things, the game as a whole was pretty realistic, armor wise, weapon wise, playstyle wise, all that sort of stuff. But then the game changed. What they added changed the whole realism of the game for me, because as soon as they added the Centurion, okay, and I was already leaning more towards the non-realism by this point with certain things, but as soon as they added Centurion, they added Shinobi, and then they, you know, added the next characters after that, I started moving away from the realism thing myself. And which I was completely fine with, might I add, because when it comes to video games, I go off the rule of cool, okay? Is the thing cool? Is it balanced? Is it fun to play? If it's all those things, I don't give a shit what it is. You could literally put a fucking 8 foot tall gorilla man into For Honor, and if it's cool, it looks cool, and it's fun to play, and it's balanced, I don't give a shit. Now, before people absolutely lose their fucking minds, obviously don't put that into For Honor. Obviously, I don't want that in For Honor, but what I'm saying though is, if it did get put in For Honor and it worked perfectly, it was balanced and it was fun to play, whatever. If it's cool, it's cool. Obviously, I wouldn't want a gorilla man. I want something cool that fits the theme of the game, but I think you get the general idea. If it is cool, it is fun, it is balanced, I am completely fine with it no matter what the game, as long as it fits. Now, some people completely hate that. They're like, no, if it's a realistic game, it needs to be 100% realistic, and you know, anything outside of that, you just can't do it because it doesn't work, it's not realistic. Now, that doesn't really work when, once again, you have things like, I'm a Kensei, and all of a sudden, I'm just gonna, you know, do this, and a whole bunch of fucking arrows are just gonna automatically come in and start showering the place. And when you look around, there's no fucking archers anywhere, okay? That's not realistic. realistic. If they had a whole bunch of archer guys run up and start fucking launching arrows, 100% fine, because you've made it realistic at that point. But then again, that would be shit from a gameplay perspective. It wouldn't be fun having to do this and then wait for a bunch of archer dudes to rock up and then them start firing arrows. The guy would have just walked off by then. Because end of the day, we're playing a video game, and no matter how realistic you try and make something, it's not going to be realistic because it's a video game. Now, as it stands in the game today, I don't think For Honor should be focusing on realism pretty much at all, outside of, you know, maybe focusing on the characters that were actually a thing and the armor and stuff that was actually a thing. Of course, they still have, you know, free reign to do their own artistic style with it, because that's cool. But when it comes to like realistic move sets and stuff like that, I don't think it matters anymore, and I'm about to tell you why I don't think it matters. Now, first of all, the devs have completely killed any chance of this game being a realistic thing for these following reasons. One, the emote system, okay? How many times does your guy sit there and go, yeah, this is fucking sick, and then there's a giant fucking rainbow above his head? Or he's going, yeah, this is sick, and there's, you know, light showering down from him, there's petals falling from fucking nowhere on top of you. You go to execute someone, it's a cool execution, you're fucking slapping them around, you're killing them, you cut their head off, and then he just bursts into this giant red fucking plasma glow thing. Just that alone, without any of the other examples I'm about to bring up, should instantly kill any form of realism in this game. But there is more. One big one that stems to mind, and this was always one that sort of led me away from realism when it first came to the original game, and that is the fact that a peacekeeper, this little girl, okay? Once again, Lawbringer, Shigoki, 7 foot tall, massive fucking dudes. The Peacekeeper is able to run up and guard break them with one hand with her dagger. She pushes against their chest and they go, and then they just wait for her to do it. Stab him in the kidneys and shit. The fact that a Peacekeeper can even just, like, you know, jump up and drop kick a guy like fucking Lawbringer in full fucking 16th century plate armor. The guy's 7 foot tall. She can drop kick him and she doesn't just bounce off the fucker. You've already lost me on the realism front right then and there. And once again, people will say, oh, but yeah, Nisa, you know, that's balanced gameplay wise and everything. And I am 100% with you. It has to make sense from a gameplay perspective because it's a game we're playing. But at the same time, you can't go screaming realism and then have a Peacekeeper drop kick a guy like fucking Lawbringer and not just instantly bounce off. Yeah, she could make him stumble a little bit, but he's not going to go flying like he normally does, especially if he's out of stamina. That is one example. The next example is the fact that, you know, the Highlander, he's wielding a giant fucking claymore, okay? That sword is huge. He turns around, he takes a swing at a Peacekeeper once again, she blocks it with her short sword and her dagger, and her weapons don't instantly break and she gets cut in fucking half. You cannot stop a claymore from a guy with the arms and the size of fucking Highlander, okay? Especially when he's swinging around and he's fucking throwing this thing at you. You can't just be like, ting, and it's all good, you just stumble a little bit. No, we're going off the realism standpoint. She would get fucking crushed into the ground, her weapons would either break, she would break her fucking arms, or she would block it, it would just bounce right through and cut her in half. But then again, gameplay, it has to make sense, everyone has to be able to block stuff, and I am 100% on that train. It has to make sense from gameplay standpoint, but you can't say realism and then go and say that, you know, that has to be a thing. Next, I'm going to be talking about one of the biggest offenders of this, and this absolutely fucking, the rest are bad, but this just completely just destroyed any form of it for me when it comes to realism, and that is the fact that you have the shaman. Okay, so the shaman jumps on people and she bites their necks. Okay, fair enough. It's cool from a gameplayer's perspective. It looks freaking sick, okay? She jumps on them, she rips their throat out. It's fucking cool. She's got blood all over her mouth. I fucking love it, okay? I always love the shaman regardless of what people think. But in the same breath, it's not realistic at all that she can once again shove over the Lawbringer, full fucking plate armor, and just go, oh yeah, metal, hung, and just bite through and somehow draw blood, or even not just break all her teeth, smash her face open on his armor. It doesn't work. The warden, okay, even with the freaking samurai, they're wearing fucking cloth. You're telling me she can just bite through cloth like it's nothing, just... I'm just gonna yoink, yeah, cool, whatever. It's not realistic, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever, and then she also has the thing where she's just diving all over the place. You had this little girl, she runs, she dives on the Lawbringer or the Shigoki, or even the warden would be able to just catch her mid-air and throw her down. Okay, the warden's not exactly a small dude. If you had a little girl like the shaman jumping on the warden, he's not gonna be fucking falling over unless she caught him completely off guard. And even then, what she jumps on him, she shouldn't be able to bite through his fucking neck, especially because he's got armor and chainmail and shit on. And also, for the record, if you had someone bite your neck like that and just fucking take a massive chunk out, you would bleed to death. You wouldn't be getting back up. Gameplay, I get it, but at the same time, it's not realistic. And that's the point of this video. Is For Honor realistic anymore, and should we even be talking about realism? Now, here's a very interesting thing, and it's very hypocritical from some people that I've seen. I talked about bringing a pirate hero into the game in one of my possible hero videos. Now, for the record, a pirate doesn't have to be like, you know, Jack Sparrow and stuff, you know, from Pirates of the Caribbean. It doesn't have to be that era of pirate. A pirate is literally just someone who travels around the seas, robs people. It's basically just like a criminal who lives in the seas. We have pirates today. They're not running around like Jack Sparrow with flintlock pistols. No, they got AK-47s and they have fucking motorized boats and shit. But when I said to introduce a pirate, I said that, hey, let's have a feat where he pulls out a pistol and shoots someone. And I had a whole bunch of people in the comments going, oh no, pirates aren't fucking realistic. It's not realistic. You can't just have a pirate in the game with a gun. Like, what is this? Like, this isn't For Honor. It's not realistic and stuff. So they were saying it wasn't realistic, but yet they're completely cool with shaman running around doing everything I just said, people going haha and rainbows popping out of their ass, all of that stuff, like, you know, Peacekeeper just blocking claymores with a little fucking sword and dagger. They're cool with all that, but they're not cool with a pirate just because he has a flintlock pistol. Same thing with my Kitsune idea, the one where, you know, he uses hallucinogenics and stuff to trick people and all that sort of stuff. They're like, oh, it's not realistic that he disappears and there's 6 of him and all that sort of stuff, and yet they're completely fine with Aramusha and Shinobi just disappearing in clouds of smoke and stuff like that. It seems to me personally that a lot of people are being very hypocritical and they're loosely using the term realistic. You either want things to be realistic, which if you look at the very like pre-alpha beta version of this game, when they very first conceived this game, it was goddamn fucking realistic. The Conqueror's walking around, if you've seen that footage, he's moving slow. The combat system was slow, weighty. It had, like, you know, it was just heavy and gritty and brutal. And then, of course, they jazzed it up a bit. They made it faster. They made the gameplay what it is now. But the original gameplay, the original idea they had, yeah, that was realistic. Nowadays, me personally, I do not think anyone can claim realism at all in this game anymore. I think we've moved past that point with all those things I mentioned. Now, should we even focus on realism anymore? Because if we have already got all these really cool, non-realistic things in the game, okay, but we're still clinging on to this whole realism factor that we want the game to be realistic when it's not, all that's doing, in my opinion, is stifling the devs from putting in really fucking cool characters, okay? We could have some really awesome, unique heroes in this game that still make sense in the context of the game, but are unique and have different things going on with them. I just think it's a real interesting conversation that we can, you know, start to have, and maybe we can push this forward to the devs. Because if we keep stifling the game from a realistic standpoint when it's clearly not realistic, then we're going to get to a point where the devs are going to start putting in things that aren't realistic, and then a certain group of people are going to start getting real fucking pissed off. And they already are. I can already see it in the community. It's already happening on my Discord, for example. So, one of the guys on my Discord is coming up with this cool hero concept, okay? It's called the Marshal. So the Grave Knight came up with this cool concept on my Discord. For a hero, he's calling it the Marshal. It sounds freaking cool. But one of the feats was that he has a chance to res all nearby dead enemies, where they've been executed or not. Now, he goes way more in depth with how that's supposed to work, but for the most part, it's supposed to be a choice thing. It's not supposed to be just a spammy res thing. But I saw some people, and it's a valid argument, a valid question. Oh, but if a guy's had his head cut off, it doesn't really make sense that a guy could just walk up and go, haha, and then all of a sudden the guy's head just magically just reattaches and he's good to go. And I get that argument, and it's 100% valid, and I can 100% see where the Grave Knight's coming from. He's like, this is cool though. It's really fun and it'd be a cool thing and it fits the theme of the character, the lore of the character, all that sort of stuff. So both sides are 100% valid in what they're saying. You have one side saying, doesn't make sense having some guy's head reattach itself, but at the same time, it's a video game and it's really cool if it happens. So here's the question that I want to propose to all of you watching right now. Is it too far-fetched to be able to res people even if they've been executed, maybe their arm is off, maybe their head is off and it reattaches and they're good to go? Is that too far-fetched for you guys? And if it is too unrealistic, then please explain to me how you're okay with rainbows and stuff being thrown around in the game whenever someone emotes and stuff. Just a rainbow with a cloud, happy cloud, all that stuff happening. Because I think that's where the conversation needs to go when it comes to this. If people are not okay with certain things like the resurrecting ability, then I would love to know how they justify things like the rainbow, shaman buying through plate armor, all that sort of stuff as well. And of course, balance and everything when it comes to that is a completely different argument. Would it be like, you know, just the martial guy walks up and just reses his entire team? That could be a little bit OP, but that's something we can talk about completely later. I don't want to talk about that right now. I want to talk about the fact that how far do we go with this realism thing, and how far do we go with stuff that's just cool and fun and would be awesome if it was put into the game. Because it is a really interesting conversation that I think we all need to have, and people are already having it. Like I said, on my Discord, people on the forums are having that conversation. I'm seeing it all over the place. And everyone has their own unique point of view when it comes to this, and everyone is sort of leaning one way or the other. You also have the people in the middle who don't give a shit. They're just like, I'm playing For Honor. This is great. And I do fucking love those guys because they just want to play the game. But for anyone who does actually care, I would love to hear your thoughts down below. Do you think realism matters in this game anymore? Do you think we should stick to more realistic stuff in the future rather than all these, like, you know, emotes that are rainbows and sunshines and all this other crap that's going on? Or do you think we should ditch the realism and just go for the rule of cool? If it looks cool, if it sounds cool, if it's balanced, if it's fun, put it in the fucking game. I'm extremely keen to hear about what you guys think. But that is the end of the video, guys, so thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, and let me know your thoughts. I really want to hear from you guys on this one. And as mentioned before, I do have a Discord. We talk about For Honor, we talk about other games, we post a bunch of memes on there. It's just a cool place for me to talk to you guys outside the comment section. So there'll be a link down below in the description box if you want to check it out. And if you do, I shall see you on there. And if you like this video and you like what I'm doing here on the channel and you want to support the channel further, feel free to check out my Patreon. There'll be a link down below in the description box. A link will pop up at the end of the video. And if you choose to donate, it is greatly appreciated. And please share this video around. It does help me out a fuck ton. And if you want to see more videos from me, please hit the subscribe button. I shall see you all in the next video. Have a good one, guys.